Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Environmental Coffee House and welcome Nicholas Humphrey. It is great to have you and it's great to see everybody here. Good evening. Good evening. And
Yeah,
congratulations. You graduated.
well, kind of.
Well, okay. Tell us. All right. Well,
Yeah.
explain the kind of.
So yeah, I participated in graduation last Saturday, but I still have to actually like defend my dissertation. So that'll be in August.
The
Should be
big
in August.
defense. Are you nervous? Are you? I
Yeah.
think, come on. We're going to give you all this like psychic support. Hi, Kim. Thank you for moderating. Who's moderating here? Kim's here and Looney Tunes 9000's here moderating. And that's great. All right. It's wonderful. We got ourselves a show. And listen, guys, we have a video, of course. We're going to chit chat with you guys for a minute. And then we're going to play this video because the video really leads us into what we're going to be talking about. But Nicholas, so tell us about the graduation, and we were talking, guys. Nick's been with us since 2017. Holy shit, we've come a long way, baby! Like the old cigarette ads.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I graduate. Yeah, graduation was good. I mean, I hadn't graduated from or participated in a commencement ceremony since high school in 2002. So, because I had various circumstances that kind of prevented me from participating in for my bachelor's and master's
Right.
degrees. But
You're such a
but yeah,
baby.
yeah. Well, I just turned 40 yesterday.
Oh, it was
Um,
yesterday. Oh shit. Did I
yeah.
forget to say happy birthday on Facebook? I'll have to go back. Happy birthday, Nick. I wish I put up the
Yeah.
happy birthday song. Everybody, happy birthday to Nick. Okay.
Yeah. I turned 40 yesterday, and yeah, it was a good. It's been overall a good time. I enjoyed commencement a lot. I got to walk up with my advisor and the dean of the college, and my advisor hooded me, put on the doctoral hood and stuff, and yeah, so that was fun. That was a good experience.
Oh, I bet Bruce loved it. And your wife is
Yeah,
very
yeah,
proud. I mean, she was all over Facebook. So it's a very amazing accomplishment. And it's not just because of, that you did a PhD, it's because of what you did your PhD in. And I know not everybody here knows. So maybe you want to explain that a little bit about that because that also leads into what we're going to be seeing on the video.
yeah. So my PhD is in emergency management. It's the emergency management is the science of how individuals and societies interact with and cope with hazards and hazard events. And so that's my background, and in my background and previously is in meteorology. And so I always had an interest in emergency management since Hurricane Katrina back in 2005,
Yeah.
and seeing obviously this huge like meteorological event, but also a social and socio-political event as well. And
Oh,
um,
it
and
was.
so yeah, it was a catastrophe for portions of Louisiana and Mississippi, and so I get seeing that kind of spurred my interest in emergency management, and I sort of took a break from that for a while, did traditional meteorology, but then I sort of looked back on it a few years ago and decided to do this program. And it's been a great program. It's unfortunate because the program actually kind of died because of budget
Yeah, I
cuts.
know, but that's
Yeah,
crazy
yeah,
because this is a
yeah,
program that's needed probably
yeah.
more than a lot of other PhDs.
Yeah.
I mean, a
Now my
PhD history
yeah,
isn't going to help with a
yeah.
disaster.
Now they still have the undergrad program, and they did partially resurrect a grad program for emergency management at the university, but it's going to be just masters. There won't be any doctoral students. But yeah, it'll still have some presence in at NDSU, North Dakota State
Sure.
University. But yeah, I'm the last doctoral student of the original program that had been
Wow.
around since 2005. So it came up in 2003, I think. So 2003, and officially dies when I leave.
So you
This.
are the one. You're going to
Yeah,
you represent. Really, you represent this place. So it's like
yeah,
incredible. But it's a shame. I wonder if they'll bring it back because obviously it was a pretty good program for you at this particular school.
yeah, yeah. It was, and I mean, it was the this school actually was the first doctoral program in emergency management in the country was at NDSU.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so it
Wow.
was a big deal, and yeah, yeah, so yeah, but it's been really good to me, and I'm looking forward to finishing the
Oh, I'm
dissertation. I've
sure.
written 3 chapters of it. I have to submit those 3 chapters to my committee, my doctoral committee, next Friday, and have that finished, and then I have to write more chapters related to the results of my research and
Do we get a hint?
everything else.
Do we get a
Oh,
hint?
the research.
Yeah.
I can tell you about the research. So basically, it's a qualitative study, so it involves interviews, talking to people, um, of U.S. National Weather Service meteorologists, to understand their knowledge of human behavior during tornado warnings, and then from that, how their understanding of that informs their communication approach to tornado warnings. So I'm asking them questions
Okay.
about, how do people typically respond to tornado warnings in their view based on their knowledge and experience.
Mm-hmm.
How do people um, decide to take protective action or not? What inhibits or helps their ability to take protective action? So I'm asking them, basically their knowledge on this social science topic, and as they are physical scientists traditionally, and to understand, and it has implications for the communication approach to warnings, has implications for their training. How trained are they in this knowledge, um, and and just in general, just understanding, for the emergency management community, understanding how this group of people, these meteorologists that are part of what we call the distributed function.
Okay.
Emergency management is not done by emergency managers. Emergency managers facilitate the work that's of emergency management that's done by other people, and it includes meteorologists that participate in warnings and issue warnings and communicate dangerous weather information to the public. Understanding for emergency managers to understand what meteorologists know and how they better can relate to them and serve
This is
and
great.
serve that purpose. So
Love it.
yeah,
I know. They
yeah,
all should be Jeff Baradelli. I mean, he's got quite a Twitter. I can't believe he's got the Twitter feed he does, and he lives in Florida, you know, the
oh
worst
yeah,
state
yeah.
on the
He has.
planet where they just took climate change out of anything in government, and they're having Key West is having record breaking temperatures in May.
Yeah, he's a very good communicator and of climate
Yeah.
stuff.
So
Yeah,
are you.
yeah,
So I think that you and he, I
yeah.
mean, you're the stars out there. But you're good. I know that you had said you wanted to do some hands-on work um in well, you looked at Louisiana. You see how hard New Orleans was hit. You see that people that don't have much never got it back or lost it. And how do you feel about then versus now in your field in emergency management? Is it better suited now to respond to things like this and events that are going to be happening, which are happening? We're going to see in our video.
I think it is in general. There's still a lot of work to do in terms of figuring out how to help in recovery, and I know that there's a lot of thinking out there on what recovery is and what it entails and things like that, and then of course mitigation, which is the sustained long term reduction or elimination of risk that we
Uh,
try to do.
yeah.
You know, that's another area where like FEMA is very interested in mitigation projects, and there's a lot of mitigation projects going on in different places, like in New Orleans, like in Fargo with the
Okay.
Red River of the North and flooding and stuff like that, to try to reduce long-term risks so that we don't have to do as much um, response and recovery stuff, or we're more able to do
Ready.
a more effective response and be more ready for recovery. That's less devastating, as
Hmm.
because we did more in mitigation. So, um, I think there's definitely emergency management has definitely evolved from the days of the early 20th century, where it was mostly very extremely reactive.
Right.
Basically it wasn't even a lot of preparedness going on. It was just like being hit by an event, and then you just react to what you're hit with, and
Yes.
it was seen that they were seen as acts of God. And now it's and then we in the mid 20th century you dealt with more acts of nature. It was perceived to be acts of nature, but now we largely see disaster as being something that's human based. In other words, humans, move into an area, and their interaction with the hazard is what causes disaster. Um, and so you can have um, a lot of issues where you have differential impacts on different people just because of socioeconomics and other
That's
existing
big.
issues,
It's huge.
racism,
Yeah.
environmental racism issues and things like that, where some people are hit much harder than others. But that's the nature of vulnerability. It's very differential, and so disasters are much more understood to be human based, society based, than
Hmm.
just purely by nature or by act of God or something. So,
Right. So, Nick,
yeah.
what you're doing your thesis on, how will that maybe translate into what you'd like to do? Are you looking maybe to do communication support or communication reach out in those communities, or more hands on? Um,
Well, my background, since it's in meteorology, my interest in meteorology and meteorologists is more like um, in the sort of preparedness and response side. So,
hmm.
like wanting to understand how to better communicate um, um, preparedness information and warning information to people, so that they
Hmm.
can have a better, easier time reacting to warnings and from hazards and hazard events. Um, I my focus is more in that area than say recovery and mitigation.
Right.
Um, you know,
Well,
so
mitigation's a tough word. I noticed
yeah,
that a lot of people are moving away from mitigating because they're seeing that it's tough, and more like building resiliency. Mitigating what's the difference to you between mitigating and resilient?
yeah, resilience is kind of a hard word. It's been defined in different ways in the literature. Because I remember when I took my recovery theory course, we actually had to write papers on resilience, and it was really challenging to like find
Yeah.
good definition of it, because it kind of encompasses different traditional phases of emergency management. So the traditional phase of emergency management: preparedness, response, recovery, and mitigation. And so resilience, it's kind of looked at as something that's the ability to be effective in all those phases, and think long term about planning for the future,
Right.
for an effective recovery, and then doing mitigation to try to reduce long term risk,
Okay.
but then deal with other things. So it's kind of a big word that encompasses a lot of things. Whereas mitigation is much more focused on that sort of sustained reduction of that long term risk that you
Right. You
hope you
said
can get
earlier.
through various projects.
Okay.
Um, yeah, because mitigation can be anything from building, dams, or
Fascinating.
kind of flood control, to doing other things such as just moving people away from the hazard. so that
Okay.
they're not exposed to it.
Oh,
So
this is
yeah.
going to be such an exciting ride to be on with you. It is. It has been so far. Well, listen, let's show the video because the video, everybody, it's a long one, but I need to lay back. My back's killing me. You're going to like it. It is a compilation, and then we're going to talk about everything we saw in the video, and then we'll do questions and answers with Nick about those things and what you have. So remember 2 Qs, and here we go. I'm going to set it up and sit back, guys, because I think this one is, well, you know how I do it. I put them together, and here we go.
Tornado went through downtown Houston and blew out all those windows. All the brown spots that you see are all windows that are destroyed by the tornado.
And there we go. Holy shit. We went around the world, and all of that is new. This is now. Now. So, what's your gut response to seeing all that, Nicholas?
Yeah, Houston was just last night. Goodness.
And
Yeah.
the windows blown out in big office buildings, but all around the world. And I know you and I were talking earlier about planning and disaster management, and I know you're not doing this internationally, but it seems to me with the increasing storms and all that all countries are going to have to increase their preparedness and their professional people like you. What do you think?
Yeah. The state of emergency management is very different depending on the country,
Mm-hmm.
and unfortunately, the way it is in the world, many countries have very little money compared to other countries to do some of the things they want to do. Because my one of my professors, we talked about mitigation and stuff, and whether it's important or feasible. My um, One of my professors, told me one time that she thinks that mitigation is like one of the most in the new world we're entering is probably one of the most important things to do in terms of trying to deal with disaster and catastrophe, because um, if you can do anything to reduce the risk posed to people in whatever way that you can, either through controlling the hazard if possible, through land use practices, through construction practices, and moving people away from certain areas.
How about
Um,
wildlife? Wildlife?
yeah,
Is that in the equation? Animals, wildlife, farming animals?
yeah. That would. Certainly, agriculture would be, have to be moved and shifted to. Um, um, but yeah, that's probably the best way to handle things, because ultimately we can. There's always going to be these hazard events that we have to respond to and try to recover from, and recovery, is not necessarily assured for
No.
people or businesses or communities. Um,
No.
but if you can do whatever you can to try to reduce the risk, of course, that we of course the thing is that while we talk about, the UN talks about disaster risk reduction,
Mm-hmm.
DRR,
Mm-hmm.
um, but at the same time we're putting more fossil fuel burning more fossil fuels and putting more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere
Oh, the pain,
that
the
create
pain.
that creates more intense um, hazard events that then you're trying to mitigate through technological and non-technological means
Yeah.
that becomes harder to do, because you're making the adding more energy to the atmosphere, more heat, more energy for more intense hazards.
Yes.
So
It's a vicious
yeah, so
cycle.
yeah, so emergency management is basically you know up against a wall where you're dealing with you know the lack of change globally when it comes to trying to tackle. I don't know if you can tackle climate change, but you're dealing with more intense hazard events that you're trying to mitigate, recover from, etc. So
Well,
yeah,
up front, what would be something that you would tell someone in Louisiana now who just also are going through all these tornado threats? And I know El Nino was to blame to for some, was part of it. But what do you tell people, or what will you tell our audience, let's say from Louisiana? What do you say to them now in this time in history? And Houston and any of the cities that are really,
well,
threatened.
I mean, there's, when it comes to like weather events, there's not necessarily anything you can do about an individual weather event or anything, but I
Prepping?
mean, it's, yeah, I mean, you can do some of the preparedness stuff, that comes with living in a hurricane or tornado prone region. Um, Certainly, you can tell governments to do a better job with dealing with evacuation and sheltering and stuff like that for like tornado shelters and things like that. But ultimately, like, um, we got to get over the hump that we seem to be, and I think we're getting there. There's a lot more people that that trust the science of climate change than the politicians would suggest, particularly the politicians on the
Or
Republican
Twitter.
side
Or
or
Twitter
Twitter.
X with
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
morons on there.
yeah, yeah.
Bots.
There's quite a few people I think in this country that trust the science, of that
Good.
climate change is real, that it's happening, that it's a
Yes.
threat, and so the we have to really push our politicians to respond because to do some stuff, I mean, we can debate how much we can actually do to I don't know if we can stop climate change, but we can at least do things to not make it worse, dramatically worse.
Yeah,
you
and those
know,
are those
yeah,
projects, and I bring people on here with
yeah,
all their ideas, like Drew and the algae, and there's as long as they're not spraying the skies with horrible stuff. We already,
yeah, yeah,
I'm talking the natural things like biochar and all. They're local. They're not going to save the planet, but they're sure going to,
yeah,
do something locally to for people where they live. And those are little
yeah,
mitigating effects to shore up. Well, I mean, what do you tell somebody that lives in Key West and that it was 115 Fahrenheit? And I don't know, was that the
yeah,
real feel or
yeah.
I don't know if that was the real temperature.
That was the real feel. The
Okay.
Yeah,
So, I mean, what
heat
is it
index.
just, oh, everybody's going to have to not have just one air conditioner in your window anymore and you think you live on the beach and that you're going to get that cool breeze? Well, wet bulb temperatures. There are people that don't even know what that is.
Yeah, I mean, people are gonna as the weather as the climate shifts and the extreme weather events therefore shift and increase. People on their own are probably going to start making decisions about whether they should stay in the area that they are now.
Right.
Whether it's just obviously a lot of people who are older don't necessarily want to move from where they are. Understandably, they've lived maybe in the same place for decades,
Right.
and they'll just take what they can get. But a
Dig
lot
their
of
heels.
people that are yeah,
Mm.
but people that are more mobile, younger, maybe more mobile, or the potential to be more mobile, they may make decisions eventually where it's just, oh, it's too hot to be here anymore. I can't work. I can't, or can't function. It's too many hurricanes. It's crazy. My house got smashed up the first time, and now it's about to get smashed up again.
Do you th-
People are going to make those sort of decisions, and over
True.
time, you'll have that climate movement. And you're already seeing that. You're already seeing climate movement. you
Yeah,
know,
but you know what I'm worried about? These states with all
yeah,
this states' rights and moving towards the right. What if
yeah,
people start wanting to leave these red states that are getting hammered and they start passing laws that you can't leave? I mean, is that dystopian? Is because that something could even come true? Oh no, we can't have all this climate migration in the United States. You have to stay where you are. I know that
I don't.
sounds dystopian and it sounds. I don't put anything past any of these crazy politicians.
I don't think it'll. I think what's going to happen is that those eventually, when it gets bad enough, you'll start seeing decreasing populations in certain places. I mean, it may
Right.
already be happening actually in some parts.
Yeah, but
It's funny. Some parts of the South
not
are
Florida.
increasing in population. Some areas are decreasing in population. And the funny thing is that because of rural flight, people are moving out of rural areas and moving to the cities in bigger and bigger numbers. You got lots of people concentrating in
Good.
certain
Leave us
areas
alone.
Yeah. That makes the vulnerability even higher because you got these concentrated areas, and they're concentrating and spreading out at the same time. So
Yeah.
you have surrounding rural areas becoming more urbanized, and so you're getting urban sprawl. That's a bigger target for damage
Yeah.
from hurricanes, tornadoes, things like that.
You
So
see it all the time. These brand new
yeah,
housing developments, and they are on the farmland. They're built where they're, when tornadoes hit, all right, so tornado ripped up a cornfield, they replanted. Maybe a
yeah,
couple of barns. Now it's whole housing developments. And as you saw in that video, all of that refuse, all of that junk, it's like they're building these places out of matchsticks. And then where does it all go, Nick?
um, landfill.
Yeah. Are we going
Yeah,
to run out of
yeah,
those? What are we going to do with all? I mean, this is continually happening. All this
yeah,
destruction. We're going to run out of
yeah,
landfills. I mean, is that a part of preparedness? Prepare the landfills for more shit from all these storms? Who
yeah. I
talks
don't
about
know.
this? I know. I don't
No
know
one
anybody
talks
who talks
about it.
about this. I'd like to find that
Yeah,
out. Yeah,
yeah,
it's insane. Well, I
yeah.
want to
Because I mean, landfills. I mean, you wonder. I always wonder that too. Actually, what's going to happen when you eventually run out of land to fill with junk?
And it's all,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, maybe people are going through these neighborhoods like you saw in Oklahoma and
hmm,
trying to salvage what they can, but there's
yeah.
just so much devastation.
Devastation. Yeah,
And that, how do you salvage? Okay, try to salvage some wood; it's all broken. Try to salvage metal from these appliances, and the metal is pretty much crap. It's not like it used to be.
yeah,
It's not the
yeah.
same. But I look at all these things, I think of that. And then I think, what are they doing in different countries in the world with all of the refuse that don't have the same kind of environmental rules as we do?
Yeah, I mean, it could be ending up in landfills that are nearer to people, because there's less
Yeah.
environmental regulation, or it could be ending up in the water, junk in the water, in the rivers. Yeah, I mean, you end up because when you have a disaster, you have not only structural debris, but you have chemicals, you have all sorts of like junk that's just spread everywhere from hurricane winds,
Everywhere.
tornadic winds, flooding, water rises, floods houses, the chemicals get drawn out of the houses that were stored, I mean, all sorts of
Yeah.
bull.
Gas
Yeah, you get
stations. I mean, flooding.
disasters.
Uh,
Disasters can be environmental disasters in and of themselves. So yeah.
it is. It's it's
Mhm.
it's crazy. I wanted to just give a nod out to Lightning Rod, who said his town got burned down. He's up in Canada, so
Oh, really? Yeah.
yeah. It's not just California. And we're just waiting for the smoke because that's all starting over again. I feel like, you know, today I got this terrible thought about the smoke and how is this going to happen again this year? Is this going to be an every year thing? As I correlate to plant my garden, that I'm going to have to wear a mask because of Canadian wildfire smoke. And when is Canada going to run out of shit to burn up? That's another thing. Are we going to? I mean, what are we losing? Everything.
Yeah. I mean, that's the cycle actually, because
Oh, lightning
you
rod,
get periods where it's not,
idiot.
you know, dry and tender to burn. It's wet and moist, and you get lots of growth, and then the dryness comes back and the fires come back, and it's
Yeah.
got all this less vegetation to burn, and it starts all over again. So yeah.
Even where I live, there was a burn ban, right? But nobody anticipated the rainy season we have, and I have got weeds. I mean, I can't get ahead of it. But
Hmm.
we had a burn ban here, and I don't think people realize, I've said this before in my shows, that listen, drought conditions were not far away from us, and that this can happen here. People don't think so. They're in la la land here. It can happen here. Fires can
Yeah.
happen. They did last year. So the burn ban's finished. And of course, it's been, like I said, it's been raining. But, how do we? I know how I'm getting ready for things, but how can you truly get ready? How can you get ready for a tornado when I know we've been hit with one, and I know any tornado that hit this place, I would be Dorothy, but I'm done.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to like,
A shelter?
yeah, I mean, it comes to like, individuals, getting prepared and having, mitigation done. A lot of it, I mean, they say they do. The thing with like preparedness, sometimes they tell people, "Oh, you got to be able to be on your own and do these things." But there's a lot of things that require government support, and especially when it comes to like, um, you know, mitigation. So like housing practices, building new houses that are anchored to the foundation and can handle destructive winds of at least 130 miles an hour or something,
Right.
or um, building houses that are near coastlines that are on stilts to resist coastal flooding or whatever else. It's just like you need like housing regulations, you need regulations, land use regulations, you need like
Oh,
things
really?
to
Wait
help
till
support.
you think that that's
Yeah,
going to happen under Project 2025 when they dissolve the administrative state for everything?
yeah,
That's pretty
yeah.
terrifying too, Nicholas, because you're going into a field that, if there's no nothing to administrate it in the federal government, will it be state level, and will there be any kind of proper response to any of these disasters that are happening more frequently, faster than
Yeah,
people think?
I don't know what Donald Trump's view on emergency management is,
It's
to be
not Donald
honest.
Trump, it's Steve Bannon and the rest of the cabal over there that wrote
Yeah,
and the Heritage Foundation. Donald Trump's
but
an idiot.
he's the one that'll bring him in, so through his
Yeah.
election. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
I mean, I think we've
yeah,
all got a plan on what is going to happen in January 2025 if that man is put back in. Will these things really come to fruition?
yeah. I mean, much of it will depend on the state of Congress and to resist anything. Which who knows what the state of Congress will
Yeah.
be in 2025.
Well, it's pretty
And
piss poor now.
the Supreme Court hasn't exactly given me much confidence in them either.
No. And so I
Yeah.
think this is a perfect way to illustrate that, disaster management, the whole field. What if they decide to say, okay, well, goodbye FEMA? Now that's crazy. That would be crazy, but this is the craziness we're looking at. I truly
Well,
believe it.
Trump could choose who he wants to run FEMA. I think
Yeah.
a new administration.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I mean,
Maybe he'll put Eric in charge. All right. Well,
well,
anyway. Oh my God. All right. Listen, we're going to go
yeah,
to a couple of the questions that I have here that people were nice, and we have a wonderful, wonderful chat. And we've got 116 people watching in total on the different platforms. So that's great. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Uh, all right. We're going to start with Tommy. Tommy, does FEMA have a plan for how to respond to an alien invasion?
that's more of the probably more of the militaries,
Yeah,
the
right.
militaries
And don't forget, we got to find,
realm.
we have to remember, we have to find the flush of the day thing too. All right,
Yeah.
that was a good one. Now, Devon, is the month of May like breaking records for the number of consecutive days with tornadoes in the United States? Well, actually
Um,
outside
I'm
too.
thinking. I haven't heard of anything like that. I know. I think April had the second most tornadoes on record in the U.S.
Mm.
Far behind 2011, which was of course devastating because you had the super outbreak in the southeast U.S. in Alabama, Mississippi, and in those areas in 2011.
Mm.
Um, but I'm not sure about May. May's definitely been active though.
Oh yeah.
Which I mean, it's normal to have a very active Mays, but it's been definitely active for even May, a normal May for tornadoes.
I've
So
seen some denying weirdo bots or whatever they are saying, "Oh, the only reason why you're thinking that weather is worse or whatever is because you're seeing it on social media and that's why it's always been this bad." No, it has not.
no,
And then and I'm arguing with people about when they're asking me about, well, how can you how come it's always, oh, it's climate change? I said, no, it's not always climate change. And haven't you ever heard of attribution studies, you clueless fucking moron? I make it really mad, but I'm very nice. I'm really actually very nice because I want to teach these people something that think they know everything. But anyway,
yeah, I know.
hey, we got some more good questions.
Mhm.
All right. So I'm sorry. I just went off on a tangent. Nick makes a good point. We have started to see how we have an impact on our habitat. Absolutely, Gary.
Yeah.
All right. And so we already we answered Devon and Karen Singing Way. How do respond to people who say scientists can't predict climate change? Look, they can't even predict tornadoes. Said to me after tornadoes hit all around us but not on us. Good question, Karen. How do you respond
It's
to these
interesting.
people? Nick, you're going
Yeah.
to have
Well,
to
I mean,
communicate with these. These are the people that it's resistant,
well,
that
well,
they want to
I
save
don't
their
really.
ass.
Yeah, well, I don't really communicate with those people, but I can say that climate and weather are two different things, and
Of course.
and predicting climate change is very different from predicting the weather. And I mean, climate change, you have large scale phenomenon that are occurring on a global scale. So you have carbon dioxide rising. We know from atmospheric physics that
Mm-hmm.
as carbon dioxide increases, you get temperature increase. Yeah, I quit trying to educate fools. Yeah, that's
I
what I
still,
do.
I still haven't. I was in
Yeah,
somebody yesterday who was also fighting with me about humidity. Humidity's natural, and that's not a part of any kind of climate change. And I'm like, oh my God, do you understand what water vapor is? And so I found a piece to clip on how the water vapor, in the air is accelerating because of the
increasing.
warmth,
Yeah.
increasing the warmth. But
Hmm.
yeah, I try with facts. I try, but it's like it's stupid because it's the internet. It doesn't matter if somebody's going to be on there. You don't know who you're even talking to.
Yeah.
You really don't.
Yeah. I think the issue with a lot of deniers is that they deny because it's been politicized by those that don't want climate change addressed at all.
Right.
Um, you know, just like with COVID and masks and wearing and all that, you had a lot of politicization. When you politicize something, it becomes us versus them, and
Yeah.
they see it as that's them. I don't believe in this. It's them that believes in
Yeah.
this.
Till it hits them.
And yeah, and then also for some, it may be too frankly scary for them, in some
Now
cases. It may,
that could
yeah,
definitely
that,
happen.
you know, it may just be, it's a scary thought that we could be doing something so profound to the planet, and it's so big that they don't want to even acknowledge the possibility that it's in fact the case that we are collectively, some of us far more than others, but
Yeah.
as a species are contributing to this environmental damage that is occurring on the planet. So
And that's where a big dose of denial comes in. Protects
yeah.
themselves. Jason says, let me see. How do you talk to your family about overshoot and climate change?
Well, I really don't talk to them about it very much. And I'm so honest. I mean, It's not something
Well, what
that we
about
talk about
others?
very much.
Do you think I know my
Other,
family talks about it because I'm sorry they have to listen to me.
yeah, I mean, you get, I mean, a lot when you deal with other people, you're never really sure what you're gonna get when you talk about
Mhm. Mhm.
issues of climate or of
Yeah.
ecological overshoot or of other issues like that. So, I mean, I'm willing to talk about it when I'm in media like this, and I'm willing to talk about the topic. But just like talking to the average run of the mill person, I don't necessarily
Right.
bring it up. If they bring it up, then I know what I can say about the topic. But yeah,
Well, I always tell my neighbor when I watch the weather, and I always let her know when severe weather's coming because I don't, she has a farm across the street, and I don't think they always know what's coming, and I always know what's coming. So at least I do that for them and they can
hmm
prepare. All right. So, oh, Deborah. Deborah, always the comedian. Countries need to change their flags. Canada could change to the maple leaf symbol from the maple leaf symbol to fireweed. Okay.
fireweed.
Yeah. Deborah, thanks. Let's take that one and we'll give it a flush. We're gonna flush away the old flag. Yeah. Bye-bye, old flag. There you go. Thanks, Deborah. She gave me fodder for a little humor.
Yeah, I
All
still think
right.
about the you can think about the symbol of the United States, the eagle. What happens when it goes extinct, right? Because
Right.
of climate change and ecological destruction, and yeah. So
Well, wait, I want to unpin that message. Okay, here is the devil's therapist. How do you keep sane? No matter where you look, it's like we're living in a post idiocracy.
well, I mean, to be honest, like I say, I don't always like go around talking about these
Right.
topics to everybody. I literally don't spend a lot of time thinking or talking about it except when I need to or want to, because that's what keeps me kind of sane. Because otherwise, it would drive me crazy. I look at we were just talking about Donald Trump. I look at the polls and see him closing in on Biden, and not that
Uh, no,
not that
we
I'm the
all
biggest
know.
Biden fan,
No,
but
none of us
I'm definitely
are. We are
yeah
given a shit choice. None of us are.
yeah
So, I mean, we don't have to pussyfoot around here. We're pretty
yeah
radical on this channel. However, there are some very scary things, that we're
yeah
looking at. It's
yeah
true. It is
yeah.
true.
It's true.
But
And
all
of
right.
course climate chaos and everything
Well,
else
that's
and
the overarching issue that people don't
yeah
want to talk about. They want to live business as usual, but I like to say, well, you want it. I mean, I know everybody. You want unions. You want everything fair, everything. But in order to have that, you have to have a livable climate, and
yeah.
it's we don't, or it's losing. We're losing it,
They're
but
losing it. Yeah.
we're losing it. Okay, so let's go to Karen again. Resilience can help give people an idea of how they can live with less fossil fuels. True. She's so wonderful. She's a trainer and a librarian. We've had her on as
hmm
our guest. She's terrific. Uh, Hasn't the establishment already effectively jettisoned most of the poor people in the world, along with most of the other living species? Isn't mitigation determined by privilege? Now, there's a good one, Gary. Come on, get on the thinking cap on that one, Nicholas.
Yeah.
Do you
I
see that?
mean, yeah. I mean, if you have more money, if your neighborhood or your city or your neighbor has more money, they have more the ability to do things to protect themselves from hazards than you. So I mean, that's the reality that a lot of people face in the world. And I mean, I think even um, a lot of countries, a lot of poor countries have had a lot of complaints to the U.S. and some of the wealthier countries that have contributed more to climate change because they refuse to reasonably fund mitigation projects
Right.
in their countries, even though they have done the most ecological and atmospheric damage, compared to the poorer countries. So, it's just like they've done the most damage and they want to do the least work to help others. So, I mean, yeah,
It's true. All right, here's
yeah.
a little bit of a different kind of question. Roll and switch. Do those concrete dome houses withstand tornadoes?
Concrete dome
Yeah, that's
houses.
a
I don't
new
know if I've ever
thing.
seen it.
They're like living in a tornado shelter. They're dome and they're concrete. I don't know because I've seen the buildings concrete.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen that. I know that
Okay,
they
we'll
that
study
they
it.
yeah, yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen that, but
Well, he'll have to
I
send
mean,
me information.
yeah.
All right, send it to us. Uh, I'd make a great Dorothy. Oh, thank you. Do-do-do-do-do-do. Yep, I'm gonna be Dorothy running away from what's her name there. Uh, okay, now we have Stephen. Finesse those conversations, Nick. I'm a rideshare driver. When the conversation comes up, I'll engage.
Yeah.
Yeah, with finesse. Well, Nicholas, you know how to do it because you're a good communicator. You slide it right in there. People are addicted and scared. They will defend this system until the bitter end. The devil. Tommyist, you have a point. You have a point. People are still doing everything business as usual, like NASCAR. Hundreds of thousands of people are going to do all these things that eventually might go away. But Devon, do they take nuclear power plants into account when doing an emergency planning? Is the stockpile of iodine pills somewhere? Good question. No, it's a good question.
I don't. I have no idea. Obviously, if you live in a community or that has a nuclear power plant, I'm sure they have that built into their emergency planning. I have to deal with, but I don't know the details of that specifically.
Well, it's interesting for sure.
Yeah,
And that's probably
yeah,
something we will cover
yeah,
here. You know,
yeah.
we, we could cover this.
Emergency management agencies do run, with different agencies that and do run like drills and stuff like that for certain events, but yeah, it is hard to plan for chemical and nuclear stuff. So,
Yeah, I would say.
mhm.
I worked in a dome shelter just outside of Mexico Beach after Michael came through okay. That's
Oh,
our
okay,
our Red Cross person. Yes, yes, yes.
nice.
Wonderful. All righty. We're almost to an hour. We said we were going to keep it to an hour. Uh, Carrot again has a good one. How to respond? Oh no, wait. Oh no, did we ask this one? How to respond to people
We,
who say scientists can't predict climate change? Look, they can't even
yeah,
predict. Oh, we did this one. All right, all right, all right.
yeah,
Well then, we need an ecocide convention. Who's going to hold it? The UN? Yeah. Well, actually, it makes sense. It really does. Hi,
yeah.
Chris. I found Greg. Oh, Dick, do you use Earth Null School much?
Not really. But it uses like the computer models and stuff that show the winds and stuff like that. So yeah, but I'm familiar with the computer models that it uses. So
All right. Well, guys, listen, get into your questions because we're keeping this to an hour. And I want to thank everybody for coming. Um, Teddy says, great stream as usual. Thank you for coming. All right. So, Nick, what do you want to tell us about what's going on in your life and closing up and where you see yourself going now?
yeah, yeah. So I'll be finishing up my dissertation hopefully in mid-August, defending it and moving on to something else that involves not
Yeah.
school.
No, not school. No,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
something else
I
that's
will.
meaningful and helpful.
Yeah, I would like to work for NOAA, the Weather Service. That's kind of my goal as a social scientist. They're doing a lot of work with trying to improve warning communication and response to people in preparedness efforts and stuff like that. So, understanding how people think and how they react to things is an important component for that. So.
Very, very.
Mhm.
It's psychology how they think. Did you get some
Yeah.
psychology learning in there? A little bit. Well, you had to. Behavioral.
Yeah, mostly social stuff, sociology and stuff, sociological stuff. So,
Were there oral exams too, or just turn in the dissertation and defend it, of course?
yeah, I did comprehensive exams last year where I had to basically answer some questions related to emergency management related topics and stuff, and I did that, and now I'll have to defend the dissertation where I actually do answer questions from the committee related to what I wrote. So.
Yeah, that's when you go up with the shaky hands. I know. I remember doing with the masters. Okay, everybody's got questions now.
Yeah.
Nick, how many hurricanes do you predict Louisiana will get?
Oh, I wouldn't even determine to predict that. It could be 0, it could be 3. You never know. So, this is supposed to be a very active hurricane season, though. So, it's important to keep in mind.
What is the response to agriculture failure due to climate change? Which we did talk about a little bit, but is there is there a response in your field? I know you said that there's specific people that address that work in that area.
I'm not familiar with that, so I don't know if I can respond to that question.
Okay, but we have a lot of food for thought here, I think, for the future. All right, well, listen, guys. Thank you. Let me just see if is there any one more. No, I think we did very well. Thank you all for coming. Nicholas, I love you. I'm very proud of you. Happy birthday again yesterday.
Thank you.
Yep, I should have had the happy birthday song or the happy birthday video, but I didn't. Oh, well. Thanks, everybody. Good night, and we'll see you on Tuesday, unless you never know. I might get a bug up my butt and do a video or a Sunday something, but I've been heavy-duty gardening, so yeah. Love to your family, and good night.
Yeah, good night.
Thank you.